Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the broadcast. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. It's Wednesday, July 31st, 2019. Back here with you again for another edition of the show. Thanks to everybody for tuning in yet again. I wasn't here yesterday with another show because I was actually busy. I had some stuff that was more pertinent than doing another show. So, that's what I was doing yesterday. Boy, oh boy, I tell you. It just always happens. It's unbelievable. It's really crazy. I had one of those moments again. It happens. It's really bizarre. I mean, when I tell you that I work on this stuff 24/7. It's true, but sometimes it's not even because I'm trying to work on it 24/7. I'm telling you, time and time again, so many things I find, so many new aha moments and new connections and new things, new information that I find comes not during the time when I'm working on the films or working on putting together shows and doing research and all that. Oftentimes it comes in my downtime when I'm trying to unplug and not trying to do any research. I mean, it's crazy. That's exactly how that 5-part Mystery Hollywood series that I did, it's 9 hours long. That's how that came together. So much of the stuff I found that I'm now putting in the Spellcasters Volume 2 and 3 came like that, where I was just trying to have some downtime, relax, watch some videos, watch a movie or something, and boom, I inadvertently end up finding some info, and I know part of that has to do with the fact that I literally don't do anything else. I don't. It's all I do is 24/7 work on this stuff. So the byproduct of that, I suppose, is that when I'm having my downtime and I'm having the off time, my brain's already automatically in that zone, so I'll find stuff. But I guess it was, it seems like it was yesterday, but I guess it might have been, you know how it is when you're up in weird hours and you're up all through the day and night. So it would have been after I'd done the last show, the night before last, and just having some downtime. I want to take a break. I did the show. I uploaded it to the archives, and then I made the YouTube video. And I kind of was feeling like I wasn't going to do a show yesterday anyway, because that show before was like over an hour and a half long. It was almost 2 shows in one. But I had planned on doing one yesterday, but I had, I just had some down. I just pulled up YouTube or something. I just had YouTube, and, you go to your homepage on YouTube, whatever has suggested videos. And there was a video that was suggested to me that was a comedian, Joey Diaz. And it was like funniest podcast moments or something, right? So I just clicked on it and had it on while I was kind of doing some other stuff. And right at towards the beginning of that compilation of clips that I was listening to, there was a clip for him on Joe Rogan's show where he said, he mentioned, oh yeah, you told me, or you talked about on the show or something. He's like, you went to Naomi Campbell's birthday party. And immediately that made me perk up, because you guys remember this a couple of weeks ago, around the time I started talking about that Nardwuar stuff. I talked about Naomi Campbell and that Nardwuar clip where he's interviewing Vanilla Ice, and he mentions him being at Naomi Campbell's party and being seen necking in a hot tub with Corey Feldman. And I talked about that on the show, and I talked about the rumors of Naomi Campbell, having a sex change and all this stuff. And I, talked about the fact that she was on the Lolita Express manifest for Epstein. And, that was really it. I'd kind of speculated. I was thinking, why she would have been on those manifests. The first thing that came to my mind was, okay, well, if this stuff is true, and I don't know what it is, it's just rumors. I'm not staking a claim on that or anything. I like to even just state all, if we're looking into somebody, I don't want to state all the things that are being said, just in case there's a chance any of it might be true. And as far as her, going to say change, I don't know. I don't know if it's true or it isn't. It very well could be just rumors. But the reason that it even at all was of interest to me, because I was thinking, well, okay, she could just be that she's a lesbian. Maybe she's into underage girls and she's a lesbian, but maybe maybe she is a man. Maybe that's why she was on the Epstein plane. Maybe she's into little girls or little boys, and who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But I just thought it was interesting, again, that was something that Nardwuar brought up. But then when I saw the Joey Diaz clip, and I remember seeing or hearing that Joe Rogan talk about that before, you can find the clip online, of him talking about going to this birthday party with Dave Chappelle that was for Naomi Campbell. So that's what reignited it for me. Because I had just done those Nardwuar videos and just been digging into that. I've already I've discussed Rogan and done and exposed stuff that he's connected to for a long time, for many years, even before he's really popular. Even back in like 2009, I sort of started exposing Rogan and a lot of the disinformation stuff that I saw him doing is associated with Alex Jones and all that stuff, that Sci-Fi Channel stuff. And I mean, it was, I took so much shit for that back then, because so many of my listeners, I lost a lot of listeners because people were thinking he's some new fucking, visionary guru or something. I could just see right through him from the beginning. But when I'd already done that Nardwuar thing, I'd already seen that, he seems to have a strange amount of knowledge he shouldn't have. And then I mention of him and him mentioning the Naomi Campbell party, and then the Rogan thing, and it just reignited me. I was like, okay, there's something here. I don't know what yet. I got to dig into this. And God, I'm so glad I did. Because I made a lot of you have seen the video by now. If you haven't, it's up on here on my YouTube channel. It's called Naomi Campbell's birthday party, bombshell Jeffrey Epstein information. Wow. That's all I can say is, I got to tell you, man, I did it again. It's crazy. I again inadvertently stumbled into some stuff and just felt compelled to dig. Yeah, is in that video Joe Rogan's describing, the house and the party and all that stuff. And I was familiar with that house. It's called the Chemosphere. Supposedly it's called that because at the time which it was made with all these, I guess at the time, which were new materials. It's been upgraded and stuff since then. I always thought it was called the Chemosphere because it was built with so many chemicals. You're going to get cancer if you go in that motherfucker. And actually, that wasn't actually far off from why it was named that. I just was joking about that, But actually, it wasn't far off from the truth, because supposedly it was built, these chemical companies had these different design materials that had never been used before that were made out of chemicals, and that's why they named it the chemosphere. But that's the building he describes looking like a UFO. So I swear I've seen that. It's been in, I swear there's a bunch of movies and TV shows that thing's been in too before. I want to say it was like a bad guy's haven and some, what, I want to say it was in that, remember that Charlie's Angels movie they came out with that had like Lucy Liu and Drew Barrymore and stuff? I want to say it was in that. I know it was in Body Heat by Brian De Palma. I know for a fact it was in that movie. But I want to say it's been in some other things. But it just looks like a Bond villain hideout or something, you know. So I wanted to find, so when I found out that's where that party was, I started digging into, I'm just trying to give you an idea of the method in which I researched all this. Before I go any further, I'm going to get into all that. Before I go any further, though, I want to just do this at the top of the show so I can get this out of the way. We have to reach 100% of our operating cost goal no later than 6 p.m. tomorrow. What we need is 12 people who can contribute $100 each, and we'll be there. That'd be great. Hey, if one person can do half of that by themselves, that's really what we need right now. Is if there's anybody out there that can step up with larger amounts, one or two people, that's really what we need, because the problem I'm having is even when we're reaching these operating cost goals, we're getting back down to zero again, and we don't really have any kind of a war chest to operate with here. So if there's anybody out there, any large contributors that can come in, you know, it just not, and I'm not talking about huge money, you know, a few $1,000s or something, or $1,000 or something would even be a help. Just something to where we can cover the operating costs and not have to constantly be working backwards from that, because I'm on to a lot of, I'm not only am I working on Soulcasters 2 and 3, but I've also, I'm on to some new stuff with this, what I'm describing to you here with this most recent information and video found it, because I've even found, this is the problem. Again, this is why the films have been taking so long. I mean, it's a good thing. I know it's frustrating, but goddamn, it's just because I keep finding new stuff. In fact, and I'm going to tell you about it here tonight, even since I made that video, folks, that I uploaded this morning about all this, even since then, I found more information that should be in that video. That's the problem with this, you know, but it's just when I find something huge, man, I want to get it out to you as fast as I can. I mean, there's so much stuff that's in Spellcasters 2 and 3 that I've been completely zip-mouthed on. I don't know how I've done it, to be honest with you. It's been tough. Because there's a bunch of new stuff nobody still has not gotten to yet that it's going to have in those films, and I keep finding more. But now I've just decided, okay, I'm just going to go with what I have. And if I find more afterwards, I'm just going to keep making supplemental little videos and updates to it. And I'll do as many of those as I have to do. You know, I've never had to do this before. I guess that's why it's kind of strange and odd for me. You know, I've never had, most of the time I do a project, I do a film, I put it out, that's it. Yeah, I might find other stuff later, but not anything like this where it's so dynamic, where there's new stuff coming all the time. And I'm finding it just when I'm not even looking for it. But this is our fundraising week for the show. We've got to cover our operating costs. We have to have a minimum of $1,200 minimum by tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on Thursday, in order to cover the operating costs and keep the operation alive and keep from going under. It's been a tough month. Last week hurt us really bad when I was unable to broadcast because of problems here during the heat wave when we didn't have air conditioning for a week. But goddamn, as soon as it got fixed, I've been right fucking back on it and right back. Besides, I'm not even thinking about that anymore. You know, besides all the problems that we've had over this past month, I've been fucking hitting it out of the park, information wise. I mean, you know, regardless of what you think about me or whatever else, especially with this new video and what I did with the Nardwar stuff, you got to give it up for me. I'm sorry, you got to give it up. You got to give it up, man. I mean, there's no question about it. The work I've done speaks for itself. But there's much more to do. But we just need everybody's help. You know, if you can't put in 100, put in what you can. Putting in nothing, you know, everybody not putting in something is a problem. You can put in any amount you want. as long as you put in something. And many hands make light work. And if we had everybody just putting in any amount, that would be helpful. If we get one person to put in 600 and then 6 people to put in 100 each, that'd be great. But, you know, if I look at the numbers of what we've been producing on the videos over the past month, you know, 900 to 1,200 or whatever per video, 12 people out of those 9 to 1,200 per video putting in $100 each should be absolutely doable. So that's the amount we need. We need to raise that by 6 p.m. tomorrow, Central Standard Time. Again, $100 contribution will get you 5 downloads of your choice from the download shop, any of my films, documentaries, any of that stuff, plus 1 question for the show. A $200 contribution will get you the complete download collection box set, which is $175 by itself. But that'll get you that and a question. So you'll get all my work and a question for the show for me to answer here for you. For that as well, we've got some other perks in there on the campaign page for higher contributions as well. So be sure to check those out. But again, if we just get 12 people that can put in $100 the next 24 hours, I don't want us to get into the situation that we seem to find ourselves in at the end of every month, is where it's, you know, we're just down to the wire and we're minutes and sometimes away from going completely under and being done, because the new stuff that I'm finding and the new stuff I found and what I put forward just this month, really, and not only that, what I've done over the past 12 years and what I've got coming with these new films more than warrants your support, especially when, as I've told you, I don't take outside funding, which means I can't be bought. What I talk about and what I say is never filtered, because I have to worry about sponsors and whether or not, you know, because I was in that situation for the first couple of years I was on the show, and it sucked, and I swore I'd never do it again, and I haven't done that again. So I'm not, a lot of the stuff that I talk about wouldn't be possible if I had to worry about sponsors and stuff hanging over my head. So many hands make light work. Just put in what you can. Everybody just put in any amount you can. The campaign fundraiser page, you can find the links to that up on our Facebook pages. It's Global Reality Radio Network Facebook page and the Josh Reeves Homemaker Talk Show Host Explorer page. And you'll also find it in the comment section, in the information section of the videos on YouTube. And if you don't want to use PayPal to contribute, but you want to use a credit card or a debit card, you can go to my website, theglobalreality.com. You can scroll down on the right-hand side of the page, and there's a donate button there, and you don't have to have a PayPal account to use that. It'll go through PayPal, but you don't have to have an account. You can use a debit card or a credit card to contribute that way, because the fundraising page will only let you contribute through PayPal. So if you've had that problem, you can also, if you want to do it anonymously and you don't want to, because people have asked me that before, all you got to do, if you want to do it anonymously, don't want anybody to know, all you got to do is, well, you can use like one of those anonymous email things. Just go to a pharmacy or Walmart or Target or anywhere. You can buy those Visa prepaid gift cards, put the amount you want to contribute on there, you know, however much it is, $100, a few $100, whatever. And then just email me the gift card information, and I can process it on my end like that. So that's another way you can contribute. You can also get a subscription to the archives, the members' archives, where the shows get uploaded to in seconds after they're finished. They take hours to be uploaded to YouTube after they're done. So if you want to ensure you're getting the shows and make sure you're not getting, I don't know if YouTube's going to crack down more, what's going to happen with that. But that's how you can ensure you get the show no matter what happens with YouTube. I've never relied, excuse me, I've never relied on YouTube to butter my bread, and they certainly don't. And it's crazy how many people think that that people who upload videos, all people make money off. I don't make any money from YouTube. When I did have one before they demonetized my channel, even then I was only getting $200 a month, like 100. Well, it was usually about 150 to 200 a month. But since we don't have that, that's, you know, that's hurt. But no, I don't get any. That was, you know, that was the most I ever got. It was about 200 in 1 month was the most I ever got. And I've had an account with YouTube since 2006, since even before I've had a director's account. I was able to upload, full movies back when people could only upload 10-minute videos. Because I got an account. I heard YouTube was coming years before it was ever coming. And so when it finally came out, I got in on it and got a director's account, which allowed me to upload full. So I've had one that long. But like I said, if they, especially with some of this new stuff I've got coming out, they decide to, put the kibosh on my channel, it's not going to stop the show. You'll just have to have a membership. You can go to my website, theglobalreality.com, hit the subscribe button on the top right-hand side of the page, and that'll show you all the deals we have. It's $10 a month, $80 for a year. We have lifetime memberships where you can buy and you never have to worry about it. You'll get access for life. We sell them for $500. Now they're on sale till the end of the month. Until tomorrow, actually, they'll be on sale for $300. So you want to get locked in with an archived lifetime thing. And also the download shop, get yourself downloads, all my films, audiobooks, and everything in there. But the best deal going is the same deal we did last month. $200. You get the full download collection box set, which is all my work, all my films, audiobooks, and everything, and you get a question for me to answer on the show. So 12 people, $100 each. That's what we need. So as I was saying, sorry, this is not, I'm not sick or anything. I looked at my phone earlier and it said that it's an unhealthy unhealthy air quality warning for Dallas today. And I see those a lot, and I usually don't notice it, but man, today it's terrible. It's getting worse. I thought we got rid of smog and all that. Remember how it was gone for a while, and this fucking shit's come back again. So the way I went about finding all this as I made that recent video was I started looking. I wanted to find out who owned that place where the party was at that Joe Rogan went to, the Chemosphere. I started looking into that, and then I went nowhere with finding out the guy who actually owns that house. Because I figured, okay, there's probably something there. But I got butt kiss on that. I didn't get anything. He seemed to be, from everything that I could find, the guy that actually owned the house is actually pretty clean. So I was looking into her birthday party. I started doing a search on her birthday parties, Naomi Campbell's birthday parties, and I found the thing about the house. I'd seen that house, the Eye of Horus house. I mean, everybody's seen that. I think at this point, I've seen it a bunch of times, but I had no idea that was Naomi Campbell's house. And so then I soon found out that the party that Joe Rogan went to was put on for her by her boyfriend at the time. And that boyfriend at the time is the one who'd rented the house. And immediately I come across his name, Vladislav Doronin. And I said, oh, he's Russian. Okay. And so I started looking into that, and I found the Eye of Horus house that's on Cleopatra Island in Turkey that this guy, if you want to talk about loaded, that's a hell of a 41st birthday gift, isn't it? That's what he gave to Naomi Campbell for her 41st birthday gift, was that Eye of Horus house. And then I found the other house that he gave her, which was in Russia. And, we'd already seen the Chemosphere place. It looked like a UFO. Even Rogan described it as that. And then I see this place in Russia, And that's what all the comments say. It looks like a spacecraft. It looks like a buried spacecraft. What it looked like to me, have you guys ever seen Robotech, the Macross saga? In the first, that was the first in the series of the Robotech series. But essentially just a quick synopsis of that is that they find this ancient extraterrestrial technology buried in the earth. It's been on Earth for thousands of years. And essentially it's this, it's like robotics, these craft that are piloted by alien or human pilots, but they're these massive like robot type things, like Transformers. And they find this massive like battleship. It looks like a warship. And it's buried in the sand, and then they excavate it and back engineer it. And then they end up finding out that these things have the ability to transform to these massive robots. So that's exactly what that house looked like as soon as I saw it. It looked like what they call the SDF-1 in Robotech. And the SDF-1 looked exactly like that when it was buried. I was like, man, is this guy, it just felt to me like too much of a coincidence. That he has this party for Naomi Campbell at this very specific place in Hollywood Hills that looks like a UFO. He buys her the Eye of Horus house. And then the next house he builds and buys for her in Russia is this thing that looks like the SDF-1 from Robotech buried, like some buried alien ship. And that was what initially was just like for me, like, okay, something's weird with this. So immediately I got that gut feeling thing that I've had many times. I've talked about it before. I had it the day of 9/11. Just instantly the day of 9/11, I had that gut. I had no data and no facts other than my gut feeling to connect it to anything. But instantly I knew, I was like, this is another JFK. This is another Kennedy. And I took all kinds of shit from my friends at the time for it because they're, you got to bring everything's a conspiracy, this, that, and the other. I'm like, I'm telling you, you don't have to believe me, but I'm telling you right now, that's what this is. And they're going to have their fucking Oswald rolled out anytime now. And of course they did. They had Osama rolled out in no time. So I had that same feeling when I was looking at that. I was like, I just knew, even though I had nothing yet to prove it, I just knew that this guy, this Vladislav Doronin, this guy has to have something to do with this Epstein thing. I just had that feeling. Because, nobody has really questioned that. I've been looking online for anything. Nobody's really, it seems odd to me. I mean, I've talked about Courtney Love. Obviously, I'm exposing her to the full tilt boogie in Spellcasters 2. And she was on those lists as well. But it just seems like nobody's asking. I mean, everybody's talking about Bill. I guess when you got presidents on there, the obvious explanation, I guess, or the easiest explanation would be that someone like Courtney Love or Naomi Campbell would seem less relevant than Bill Clinton or Donald Trump. But again, this stuff is so deep. There's just no way those people are on there, and it be an accident. So it's like, this has got to be the connection. This guy's a billionaire, Russian billionaire. This guy, Vladislav Doronin, is known. They call him, not only do they call him the Russian James Bond, they also call him the Russian Donald Trump, which is kind of funny because isn't Donald Trump the Russian Donald Trump? Thanks, folks. I'll be here all week. Be sure to tip your waitresses. Thank you. You know what I mean? I mean, isn't Donald Trump the Russian Donald Trump at this point? But that's what they call this guy. So I started looking at this guy. I said, okay, well, let's see what he's connected to. Let's go and see where it's. And the first thing I see, first thing I see is that he is the founder of Moscow-based Capital Group, owner and chairman of Amman Resorts. And I was like, well, it hit me. I was like, wait a minute, Amman Resorts. I swear I saw that name, Amman Resorts, recently. So in the past couple of weeks. I swear it was right around the time when the whole Epstein thing busted out, right before the anniversary of the faked Apollo moon landings on the 20th. Because there was a lot of stories stuff coming out. That's when all the stuff started coming out about the island and all that, the island of sin and all his, the mansion on the Upper East Side and all that stuff. And I was going through my news articles because oftentimes I have tabs and stuff open for stories. I got stories piled upon stories. I got stuff I don't even get to sometimes on the show. And I came across this article from Town and Country that was published on the 18th. Everything we know about Jeffrey Epstein's vast real estate portfolio. And I was like, yeah, I think this is it. So I started going through it and was looking. Little St. James Island, U.S. Virgin Islands. Though Epstein referred to his 72-acre private island as Little St. Jeff, locals apparently had another name, Pedophile Island, in a civil suit filed against Maxwell in 2015, which later settled. Roberts Giuffre claimed she was forced to participate in orgies there. According to Bloomberg, Epstein visited the property, which was designed by Ed Tuttle, one of the three designer and architects best known for their work for the elite Amman Resorts. And I went, bam, motherfucker, there it is. Boom. Founder and CEO of Amman Resorts, you guessed it, Vladislav Doronin. Him and his company are the ones that designed that fucking whatever, that Middle Eastern, Egyptian, Babylonian looking fucking, which they say, oh, that's where he liked to play piano. No, that's saying that's where that's the kiddie porn dungeon right there, or the whatever, who knows, the kill room even, who knows? We don't even really know at this point. But that's when he immediately all went, God damn, I was right. That gut feeling was right. Because immediately I just got the images in my head of that dome on the Eye of Horus house that he had built for Naomi Campbell. And, the spaceship house and all that. And went, oh, man, there it is. And so I started looking more into him. I started finding the clips that were in the video that I made, and it's interesting that the woman who designed that spaceship house, her name was Zaha Hadid, and as soon as I looked her up and saw a picture of her. First thing I noticed about her was, I was like, damn, that doesn't look like that looks like a man in drag. I just thought it was hot. I was like, God, that's weird. Because I was already with Naomi Campbell, and Naomi Campbell, let's be honest, she's got some manly features to her. So I'm looking at this Zaha Hadid person, and it's so strange, man. She designs this house, spaceship house for old Vladislav. I think it ended up being the last thing that she did. And then on March 31st, 2016, she died of a heart attack in a Miami hospital where she was being treated for bronchitis. Interesting that someone who would have bronchitis would die of a heart attack from bronchitis. I don't know. Something started to seem weird about that. makes you wonder if she saw some stuff, because old Vladislav has projects and properties in Miami. I found that out. I don't know, it just made me wonder. But then again, you know, some of those guys, those multi-billionaire guys like that, they're, even if somebody like that doesn't know something, they're the type of person where, like, if they have something built by somebody like that, they want the value to go up, I'm not saying that this guy did this. I'm just saying this is possibility. This is not beyond fucking what these guys do. These people are in a completely different reality than you and I. I mean, these are the type of guys that they will off somebody, like off an architect. You know, say an architect builds them a house, and they want the value of that to go up, because a lot of this stuff are like works of art. You know, they're like sculptures. And I just, you know, I just don't think anything's a coincidence anymore. So when I found out that she built the spaceship house in Russia for Vladislav, and then she fucking kicks the bucket, dies of a heart attack from bronchitis, which I just don't see the connection. I'm not a medical expert. I suppose if you were, you know, coughing to the point where it was out of control, but, you know, it could have been something that brought that on. I guess you could have a heart attack, but going to cardiac arrest, but I don't know. It just seemed too coincidental and too convenient. Oh, here's this guy, this Russian billionaire guy has her build this crazy spaceship house, and then it ends up being, you know, the last thing she did before she kicked the bucket, which of course is going to make the value of that house go up tenfold, because it's the last thing that this revered architect did, you know. And then I started trying to look more into this guy. And some of you, this is crazy. It's wild how much stuff that gets reported in other countries in the news just never gets reported here in Western news. And I found this story from 2017, and right at the top is Vladislav Doronin, Doronin. And the title of the article is from a Russian, it's en.crimerussia.com, a Russian news outlet. Likely business ring to the Moscow City shootout. Apparently there was this massive shootout where a bunch of people got killed that involved people that were in the employ of Vladislav Doronin and another Russian billionaire named Gavril Yushavev in Moscow City in 2017. It says the network of Gavril Yushavev, the co-owner of Oko Tower, whose security first opened fire during the shootout in Moscow City, talks about a possible provocation from Vladislav Doronin, the second co-owner of Oko. As Rosebalt reports, referring to its own sources in the scandalous conflict involving the use of firearms, Yushavev's bodyguards were opposed by the soldiers of GRAPS 2 PSC, controlled by the second owner of Vladislav Doronin. Now, it says here at the top that GRAPS 2 PSC is a private security company owned by Vladislav Doronin. So immediately I was like, well, I got to look into that. Man, I can't find dick. Both of these guys have their own private security firms, like their own personal Blackwaters. But I can't find anything in any of the normal sources that I'm looking for on this private security company called GRAPS2, GRAPS-2. GRAPS2 private security firm. If anybody out there can do some digging themselves, maybe see if you find some stuff I didn't find and send it to me, it would be greatly appreciated. But this is where it got my interest. So you got Vladislav Doronin, you've got this Oko Tower in Moscow City, and it's co-owned with another Russian billionaire guy named Gavril Yushvayev. And apparently there was a provocation, and both of their security teams basically had a giant shootout and a bunch of people got killed. According to the source of the publication, there's allegedly a serious conflict related to business between Yushvayev and Doronin. Now listen to this. The bloody incident in Moscow City began after the employees of Graps 2 frowned on the way Yushvayev's limousine was parked. The security guards began to require the driver to move the car in a rude manner and with the use of force. This is where it got my attention. However, the guards of Yushvayev came to assist him. Almost all of them are former and current MMA fighters. A fight broke out between the conflicting parties, which morphed into a shooting. That immediately got my attention. Both these guys have their own private security firms, and almost all of them are either former or current MMA fighters. See, that's what I put in the video. You know, Joe Rogan going to the Naomi Campbell party. Because he's been, I think, almost completely silent on the Epstein stuff. He hasn't even mentioned it. It seems like that's something normally he would dig into. And I'm not the only person, judging by the comments we've already had on the video today, I'm not the only person that's noticed that. The glaringly obvious omission of any mention of the Epstein thing by Rogan. And that's when it hit me, because see, I already know about all the mob connections to the UFC, which Joe Rogan is a commentator for. By the way, he should just stick to that. You know what? I mean, I think he's really, honestly, I don't think he's a funny comedian at all. I think his comedy specials are terrible. I think his comedy's terrible. I don't think he's funny. I think he's got some fucked up skewed, but he's funny sometimes on his show, but it's just a disinfo buffet. But he's good at that. I'll give him that. I'll give him that. He's good at that MMA fight calling stuff. I like to watch the women's fights. I don't give a fuck about seeing two dudes smashing pistols together. Some of them are okay. Some of the fights are okay, but I like the women's fights because the women just beat the shit out of it. God damn, son. Women fight to the death. To the death. I like Valentina Bullet Yevchenko. That's who I like. Women just seriously, I've seen more blood with women fight. I tell you, the best fight I ever seen in my life. It was in high school, man. Two of these corn-fed ass fucking country girls beat the living fucking shit out of each other till they were a bloody crumpled mess on the floor in front of the whole school, and it was the goddamn greatest fight. I've never seen a fucking MMA fight that could even come close to this. These two corn-fed country girls wearing those Rocky Mountain jeans, you know what I'm saying? The ones that don't have pockets in the back that fucking make their ass stick out. Both of them wearing those, beating the fucking piss water out. I mean, I've seen guys, they were trying to literally kill each other. Two women enter, no woman leave. God damn, women want to murder each other. But as soon as I saw that Vladislav Doronin guy and this other Russian billionaire, that's when I was like, okay, I get it now. Okay. Now we know why Rogan's been so quiet on that. Look, it's well known. The Russian mafia, what's that one guy, Khabib Nurmagomedov? The one that fucking whooped Conor McGregor? These guys, the Russian mafia is heavily involved with the UFC and with the MMA world in general. So that's when it all made sense to me. I get it. Okay. Now I know I'm fucking onto something with this. I don't think, just like one of our commenters said, I'm not necessarily saying that Rogan's involved in all this stuff. He could be. We don't know. But if I had to guess, just from my own research, I would say the reason he's not talking about this, it's a conflict of interest. Him even talking about stuff is a conflict of interest to him because he's a UFC commentator. Everybody knows him. Almost all of those guys all listen to his show. Almost all of them do. It is not in his best interest. But so, you know, that's my point, though. If you have knowledge of something like that, you know, being silent is, I mean, to me, in my opinion, it just makes you just as guilty as people who are directly involved in it. But I get it. And I get it especially more now after finding more about this guy. I was like, oh, that's why he's not talking about the Epstein stuff. There it is. That's because these guys, when they're like former and current, when they're either when they're done fighting in the UFC or when, you know, because these guys, after they fight, they have 6, 7, 8 more. I mean, they can't fight again for sometimes 6, 8 months, almost sometimes a year after they do one fight, because the athletic commissions make them, they put them on suspensions, especially if they get any kind of injuries, and then they can't fight again. Well, they gotta, you know, they've got to make money in between the next time that they're fighting again. So that's what these guys are doing. I mean, these guys are, think about it, these guys are working to become killers, murderers in the ring. What the fuck else are they going to do during that time? It makes total sense. I never thought about it before. But finding this article from 2017 about this melee that broke out, again, just another inadvertent piece of info that I wouldn't have come across any other way. But this Graps too, man, it's really, I'm trying to find any information. I can't find dick on the internet about this Graps 2 private security firm. And I have that gut feeling that if I can find more info on that, it's going to give me more info on the rest of this stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, the UFC's, didn't they got bought out by, what's that guy's, the Ari, I can't remember his name, Dewey Jewenstein, Ari Goldstein, whatever his name, the Ari guy on Entourage, Jeremy Piven's character was modeled after. His company, they own the UFC now. They're heavily tied in with the mob. I mean, it's a fact. They're heavily tied in with the mafia. So that's exactly why Joe Rogan's being hush-hush about this stuff and not talking about it, because it's not in his best interest to talk about any of this stuff. So then I went and started looking more into old Vladislav Doronin. And I something caught my eye. It didn't catch my eye the first time around when I was looking. I was like, I didn't see that the first time. It says in 1985, he relocated to Geneva and then to Zug, where he worked under Mark Rich. And I went, surely that's not the same Mark Rich I'm thinking of, is it? You know, because this connection, finding his connection to the Amman resorts and being that him and his company built Epstein's fucking island of sin, that's a big connection. That's a big, major thing that nobody else in the mainstream media has put together as of yet. I mean, yes, there was that article about it, but no one's connected this to the Naomi Campbell being on the Lolita Express passenger manifest. I mean, this is big. But finding out that Mark Rich was an international commodities trader, hedge fund manager, financier, and businessman, founded the commodities company Glencore, and was later indicted in the United States on federal charges of tax evasion and making oil deals with Iran during the Iran hostage crisis. And guess who gave him a presidential pardon? Bill Clinton. And I went, and this is, I found this out after I'd already made the video. That's why it's not in the video, because I found this out after. That's what I'm saying, folks. I'm finding shit. I'll make these videos, I'll make these movies, I'll put this shit out, and I'm still finding stuff. But that, to me, that's it. Bang. Boom. If you doubted the connection to his building of Epstein's Isle of Sin, finding out that Vladislav's mentor was Mark Rich, and how he got his whole start was Mark Rich, who I believe is suspected of being a pedophile too. You know, he was trading with Iran during the whole hostage scandal thing. Bill Clinton pardoned him. That was it. I was like, there it is. There's no question in my mind now that this Vladislav Doronin guy, known as the Russian Donald Trump, and listen, the Russians are well known to be involved in these human trafficking, sex trafficking rings. And that's what sealed it for me. I mean, it was already sealed for me when I made that video. That's why I made the video. And then, of course, there's Nardwuar. You do realize that clip of him interviewing Vanilla Ice, you realize that's from like 1999? I went and started looking. I did a search and started looking I did a search on Naomi Campbell. I'm sorry, I did a search on Vanilla Ice, Corey Feldman. I couldn't find anything. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that proves my point again on Nardwuar. I mean, that was like 1999. And already even then, 20 years ago, there was scandalous stuff going around about what was going on at Naomi Campbell's birthday parties. But to find out that Vladislav Doronin, on top of all this other stuff, I mean, here he is connected to that. There's the connecting to Bill Clinton through Mark Rich. Mark Rich was his mentor. That seals it. It absolutely seals it. And again, I don't see anybody at the New York Times or any of these other big mainstream news outlets putting this together. But again, they're owned by all these billionaire guys, and they have no interest in the truth. So of course you're not going to find that there. But it just, like I said, it just irks me to no end that those of us like myself and others out there who aren't getting paychecks to do this are putting together things that people who have college degrees and work for media outlets aren't doing. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I don't think there's any question. Now, this to me is the major thing here, because I've been saying for a while that even this Epstein thing and even the R. Kelly thing, why did those guys get away with it for so long? And why was it suppressed and even, people turned a blind eye to it? And then all of a sudden, same thing with Cosby. Same thing with Harvey Weinstein. People can say, oh, it's Me Too. They say, no. All this, from Me Too stuff to this is all a part of a plan. Okay, none of this stuff happened by accident. And just like I told you, it wasn't hard to figure out Epstein. He's not long for this world. They're either going to fake his death. They'll probably fake his death and send him to Russia. That's where a lot of these people get sent that have their deaths faked. They get sent to Russia. That's the only place in the world where they can go and not get exposed. But like I said, this thing's bigger than Epstein. I knew it was bigger than Epstein. I knew it was bigger than R. Kelly, because these guys who they were involved with and the amount of money we're talking about, it's not something any one of these guys could have done all by themselves. We're supposed to believe that Jeffrey Epstein masterminded and did all of this stuff by himself with no help and without some massive organizational capabilities going on to do all this stuff. Bullshit. absolutely bullshit. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the likes of billionaires and A-list celebrities on his list. This is big. And the same thing with R. Kelly, you know, having fucking professional lighting rigs. I mean, you know, most people just film shit with a camcorder. You watch that documentary, you see he wasn't just filming himself pissing on people with a camcorder. He was doing this shit with high production values, with professional lighting rigs and cameras and stuff. And we're supposed to believe, oh, he was just doing it to document it for himself. No, he was doing this stuff at the behest of some big-time people that control these record labels, control all these media conglomerates, and the rest of it, billionaire people that can work behind the scenes. And this is really, to me, it just blew the whole lid off this thing. Now I know why we had the fucking, just like I told you on the, you know, why we were never going to find out any stuff from the Mueller investigation, the intentionally botched Mueller investigation. Why do you think they put that clown in there to do it? They had no intention of ever finding out the truth, because if the truth ever came out, why do you think all that stuff's been redacted? It's going to expose the whole fraud of the whole system, because you got people left and right all involved in bed with Russia that have been in bed with Russia for decades, going back to when the Cold War was still going on. I started uncovering all this stuff when I was making Spellcasters 1, because when Spellcasters 1, you got to remember, you know, I always try to remind people this because I don't want people to forget this, especially when you watch that film and you see the connections I made in there, and I'm showing you connections to Russia and Trump, and you have to remember that movie came out in July 2016. Already I had the connections with Russia and Trump in there before he was even elected. And of course, that went back to the connections I found between Scientology and Russia, and how even in the 1960s, L. Ron Hubbard was selling off secrets to Russia in the 1960s that they were obtaining through these auditing sessions for the OT levels of Scientology. So every time I've ever looked at any of this stuff, the one thing that becomes more, nothing is not connected. All this stuff is interconnected. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. I guarantee you we'll probably find out eventually. We'll see a direct connection between all this stuff. I mean, that's why old Khashoggi, Adnan Khashoggi, kept coming up at every turn. You know, I first exposed him in 2011 in the Secret Volume 2. Showed you his connections to GCN, the radio network that had Alex Jones' show. GCN Radio Network. Connections to Adnan Khashoggi and Genesis Media Publishing, all that stuff. And then it comes out that Epstein was working with Khashoggi, and Khashoggi was well known as a sex trafficker. I've talked about, what's her name? Fake Paul McCartney's ex-wife, Heather Mills. She was one of his bitches. She was one of it in his harem, in his sex trafficking ring. She was the bottom bitch. She was his main bitch. And she came to him one day. They put out that shill story, like when she was on Dancing with the Stars and shit, that she lost her leg in a motorcycle accident, love. Bullshit. His former secretary came out and said that was bullshit. Khashoggi's former secretary said, oh, no. That's a shill story. She didn't lose her leg in a fucking motorbike accident. She came to Adnan one day and told him that she was out. She was leaving the prostitution ring. She wanted out. And he loved that pussy, boy. That was his favorite piece. And he said, calmly said, okay. All right. Yeah, I'll let you go. But one thing before you go, whack! Took a sword and cut that bitch's fucking leg off. Boom! God damn! That's ruthless. And Oh man, this is crazy. So it all connects together. I just know what I got coming in Soulcasters 2 and 3. It blows my mind even. It's crazy. The clip where she's, when she was getting divorced with Paul, the reason why she left Paul was because she found out he wasn't the real dude. That was the whole reason. And there's clips of her saying, I've got a box of data. And if anything happens to me, if I die suspiciously, if I die anytime, every major media outlet is going to get this package that's going to expose the truth about Paul McCartney. And she says, I'm not talking about infidelity or anything like that either. I'm talking about something that will shake the core of the planet to its foundations. What I have is so big, it will affect the entire world power structure. And then, of course, you find out that, Queen had the song Khashoggi Ship. The Police with Sting and Stuart Copeland and all those guys, they were all hanging out. There was a video I talked about where he's playing drums in that lion cage. And in an interview, he says, oh, yeah, we shot that at Khashoggi's place. He's a gazillionaire out in Africa. Yeah, we shot that on his ranch. And then you find out that Stuart Copeland's parents were MI6, CIA. I mean, his brother Miles Copeland that managed the Police. The first record label he was called CIA Records, and then he started IRS Records, which was a record label that first signed the band REM. Look at the back of the early REM records. You'll see it. It's got like a man in black with the sunglasses on it. It says IRS Records on it. That was that was Miles Copeland. That was his record label creation. And, Stuart Copeland talks about, being in school going to school in the Middle East and being in school with Osama bin Laden, because, of course, Osama bin Laden was CIA too. So, of course, he'd be going to school with the children of other CIA people. I mean, this thing just unravels all of this. And all of it's connected. And, it just continues to be mind-blowing. But yeah, finding out that Vladislav Doronin's mentor was Mark Rich, the guy, that fucking Clinton gave a presidential pardon to, and him being on the Lolita Express manifest as well, it just says, well, there it is. If there was any doubts, if anybody was going to try to have any doubts on the validity of Vladislav Doronin and his connections to Epstein and this whole thing, and then finding out his connections to the Russian mafia, which pretty much everybody in Russia, you're not, and a lot of people, there's just not as much. It's crazy, man. It's crazy because in Russia, it's just a known thing. I mean, if you're a billionaire in Russia, you're in the mafia. That's just the way it is. If you're in politics in Russia, you're involved with the mafia. It's de rigueur, man. It's just accepted fact. And it's hilarious how people in the United States who love to watch Martin Scorsese mafia movies and gangster movies and all that, and I do too. I love them all. But, if you start suggesting that CEOs of corporations in the United States and all these people and Donald Trump and whatnot are involved in the mafia, then it's a conspiracy theory. No, man. Listen, the mafia, these guys have been behind politics and big business at the highest levels for decades. And it's never ended and it's never stopped. And yeah, they'll put out that's why they love to put out these mafia movies every few years or so, where it makes you have the impression that organized crime is cracked down on by law enforcement and all the rest. And it's just not true. It's just not true. But that's why they do it. And that's why they do stuff like they burn some of these low-level guys like Epstein, and not that Epstein was low-level. What I'm saying is, in comparatively to the overall thing of worldwide sex trafficking and these pedophile rings, they love to do that. They burn a high-profile guy like him, they give it all the media spectacle and all the media attention, and then that gives the perception to the sheeple that this stuff has been handled. They, when it's over, they sigh, they're just silently, okay, whew, that scumbag's taken care of. But the machinations and the machinery of this stuff continues on. Regardless, it's going to continue on. But every time they burn one of these guys, it makes it that much, it gives that much more padding to the real people involved. And that's my whole point with this. I just knew, like I said, I knew this stuff was deeper. I know you all did too. I knew it was deeper than Epstein, whatever. But again, it was just one of those things, man, of that, it was like you hear something once, okay, you hear something twice, it perks you up. You hear it a third time, like, I need to look into this. And it just seemed like I was continually hearing stuff about these birthday parties with Naomi Campbell. And then I found the Nardwuar thing, and that was odd. And then to hear Joey Diaz talk about Joe Rogan going to one, that when I was like, okay. I got to look into this. And I'd already known about the Russia connection for the UFC, but that's really, I think that more than anything else, that's why he's not talking about this stuff, is because the Russian mafia and the American mafia, and who knows what other mafias. I'm sure the Brazilian mafia has its own connections into it as well. When you're talking about that many billions of dollars. But yeah, finding that Mark Rich connection, that's when I was like, all right, put a bow on that motherfucker. And then this is just crazy. It was like 2 more stories came out just today. That tie in with some of this stuff I've talked about. It's crazy. Epstein hoped to seed the human race with his DNA. They're saying he wanted to have his dick and his head frozen when he dies. Jeffrey Epstein, the wealthy financier who was accused of sex trafficking, had an unusual dream. He hoped to seed the human race with his DNA by impregnating women at his vast New Mexico ranch. Mr. Epstein, over the years, confided to scientists and others about his scheme, according to 4 people familiar with his thinking, although there is no evidence that it ever came to fruition. Oh, God. Well, that means it probably did. That's where we're at with this stuff, folks. You know what I mean? If the New York Times says there's no evidence it ever came to fruition, that means it absolutely did come to fruition. We just haven't seen photographic evidence yet. I'm telling you, that's where... that's what my own research has shown me, is whenever they say something like that, that means it did happen. Mr. Epstein's vision reflected his long-standing fascination with what has become known as transhumanism. Oh, my God. Now we're bringing transhumanism into this Epstein thing, too? I mean, this is more fucked than I even thought. The science of improving the human population through technologies like genetic engineering and artificial intelligence. Critics have likened transhumanism to a modern-day version of eugenics, the discredited field of improving the human race through controlled breeding. Mr. Epstein, who was charged in July with the sex trafficking of girls as young as 13, was a serial illusionist. He lied about the identities of his clients, his wealth, his financial prowess, his personal achievements. Makes me think of that Gordon Gekko quote from Wall Street. Money isn't won or lost, pal. It's simply transferred from one perception to another, like magic. Oh, I love that. Love that quote. That's what it is. Money, just transferred from one perception to another like magic. Oh, that's such a great. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I called my series the Spellcasters, because that's what these guys. It's really what these guys are doing. they're masters at controlling perception. He lied about the identities of his clients as well as financial prowess, his personal achievements, but he managed to use connections and charisma to cultivate valuable relationships with business and political leaders. Interviews with more than a dozen of his acquaintances as well as public documents show that he used the same tactics to insinuate himself into an elite scientific community. Yeah. Thus allowing him to pursue his interest in eugenics and other fringe fields like cryonics. I'm not buying that narrative either. That he's just some... Again, this is how you know they're hanging Epstein out to dry so that they don't bring the whole house of cards down. You know, trying to spin this narrative that he was some huckster who was slick and got himself into the elite scientific community. Bullshit. These motherfuckers at the highest levels of all these communities, whether it be scientific or religious or big business or anything else, are all into this shit. He didn't just... Come on. He didn't just huckster his way into the elite scientific community. He got in the room with those people because they're into this stuff too. I don't want to, I hate to fucking sound like Alex Jones on you for a minute, but yeah, the people that are into the eugenics and the transhumanism stuff are also into sex trafficking and pedophilia. It's just no way around it. Lawyers for Mr. Epstein, who has pleaded not guilty to the sex trafficking charge, did not respond for requests for comment. Mr. Epstein attracted a glittering array of prominent scientists. They include the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Murray Gell-Mann, who discovered the quark. Let me back up, okay? Let me back up. I want to be very clear. I don't want to fucking glaze over this. I just read you the last paragraph that said he used the same tactics to insinuate himself into an elite scientific community, thus allowing himself to pursue. Okay. You got that, right? We know that's bullshit. But here in the next paragraph, these are the people that say it says that he was involved with. Listen to these names. Does this sound like people that could just be easily, persuaded by a huckster? No. This, again, more proof that Epstein, they're burning this guy. They're burning him so he doesn't bring down the whole house of cards. Mr. Epstein attracted a glittering array of prominent scientists that included Nobel Prize-winning physicist Murray Gell-Mann, who discovered the quark, the theoretical physicist and best-selling author Stephen Hawking. Oh, that just gave me a terrible visual, didn't it? And that robot voice. Let me see your boobs. I want to molest a child. Let me put it in your butt. The paleontologist and evolutionary biologist Stephen Jay Gould, Oliver Sacks, the neurologist and best-selling author George M. Church, a molecular engineer whose work to identify genes that could be altered to create superior humans. And the MIT theoretical physicist Frank Wilczek, a Nobel laureate. And they're trying to spin this narrative that he somehow huckstered his way. No. That's this. They're shittling this shit to the ninth power, man. Listen to that. They know goddamn well these. Listen, I gotta be honest, man. I really did for a long time. And listen, I don't discount Alex Jones. I believe Alex Jones is involved in all this shit too. I think that's how he knows. You want me to be 100% honest? It's how he knows a lot of this stuff. It's like I talked about. He was, when he was calling Tarantino a pedophile, but didn't show any evidence of it. I mean, why not show that picture that I talked about? Why not show that? He didn't do that. It's because he has inside information and knowledge because he's in with this stuff too. But there's no question about it, man. These guys, these big name, and people don't want to accept that, man. And these big name scientists that are doing this research into transhumanism and creating superhumans are also into this pedophilia stuff. And this thing is so much bigger. But, I mean, this stuff's never going to go to trial. You're a fool. They're going to Oswald his ass. Jack Ruby his ass. Oswald! Epstein! That's what's going to happen. But even then, it may not even be real. They probably, I think, are going to fake his death. Because he has, well, I think didn't he do some ratting? I think he did some ratting back in like 2007, 2008 or something, but they're never going to let this. It says they've got something like 1 million pages of documentation now. Man, this shit's never going to, you are a fool. You think this shit's ever going to hit a fucking courtroom. Just like they were never going to allow Lee Harvey Oswald to be put on trial for the assassination of Kennedy and tell everything he knew about covert CIA ops and the rest of it. They're never going to let Epstein on the witness stand. They're never going to allow all this stuff to come out because, as we've seen, I mean, this is much. I don't even think most people can fathom how much bigger this is than people think it is. This is not just, I understand. We get tired of people get tired of hearing negative stuff. They get tired of this, that, and the other in the news. But this Epstein thing, more than any other story, more than any other issue that you get hammered with in the media, this is the biggest thing because of the implications it has and how many people are involved in it and how many of these people happen to be, big names or happen to be, become, have big platforms, people like Joe Rogan, who may not even directly be involved with some of this stuff. But then you look at some of his guests. I mean, this week alone, he had fucking Maynard James Keener from Tool. And the very next show, he had that Mike, whatever his name is, Mike Stone or whatever that guy's, the CIA guy, who clearly is Rogan's CIA handler. And he's had, other certain, you just look at the certain people he's had on, the certain guests he's had. It's very clear who he's working for. The lure for some of the scientists was Mr. Epstein's money. He dangled financing for their pet projects. Some of the scientists said that the prospect of financing blinded them to the seriousness of his sexual transgressions. Right. Oh, well, come on. He was going to fund our scientific project, so we were willing to look the other way of the fact that he was fucking 13-year-old girls. And even led to them giving credence to some of Mr. Epstein's half-baked scientific musings. No, come on. So he's a guy, this guy, listen, we ought to fucking, if he's that much of a goddamn mad genius scientist, we ought to not have him rotting away in a prison cell. We need to have Mr. Epstein in in some sort of prison laboratory where he's coming up with the cure for cancer. I mean, it sounds, the way they're spinning this, I mean, this guy is a fucking... Fuck Einstein, fuck the rest. I mean, this guy's surpassing even Stephen Hawking and the rest of these guys. Please. Please. That is so hilarious. As if he was the one coming up with these ideas about transhumanism and the rest of this, and they just went along with it because they wanted his money. Right. Scientists gathered at dinner parties at Mr. Epstein's Manhattan mansion where Dom Perignon and expensive wines flowed freely, even though Mr. Epstein did not drink. He hosted buffet lunches at Harvard's program for evolutionary dynamics, which he had helped start with a $6.5 million donation. Others flew to conferences sponsored by Epstein in the United States Virgin Islands and were feted on his private island there. One of the scientists, including Mr. Hawking, crowded on a submarine that Mr. Epstein had chartered. Wow. Can you imagine being on a fucking submarine with Stephen Hawking? I want to go and touch a boob. We are underwater. The Harvard cognitive psychologist Steven Pinker said he was invited by colleagues, including Martin Nowak, a Harvard professor of mathematics and biology, and theoretical physicist Lawrence Krauss, to salons and coffee pastiches at which Mr. Epstein would hold court. While some of Mr. Pinker's peers held Mr. Epstein as brilliant, Mr. Pinker described him as an intellectual imposter. He would abruptly change the subject, ADD style, dismiss an observation with an adolescent crack. Other scientists cultivated by Mr. Epstein, Jaron Lanier, a prolific author who is the founding father of virtual reality, said that Mr. Epstein's ideas did not amount to science and that they did not lend themselves to rigorous proof, but yet you guys hung out with him, took his money. And so, but you weren't saying any of this until all this planned rollout has come about now. Now you guys are all talking shit. Well, he was an intellectual moron, right? But you still took his money and you still went to the private islands. Come on. See, this is why they're scared. This is why they don't want the full depth and scope of this to come out. And why they want to merely hang this on Epstein as being this mad genius guy who not only pulled all this off by himself single-handedly, but cooked it up as well. So on the one hand, they want us to believe that he ran this massive sex trafficking ring for years with the highest people in power, but don't go thinking he's too smart because he's actually a moron. Right. And so Stephen Hawking's hanging out with him in a submarine because he's a moron. And because he duped him into believing that he was smart. I mean, you got to be an idiot to believe that narrative. And of course, that's exactly what these guys think we all are. They think we're all idiots. Mr. Epstein was willing to finance research that others viewed as bizarre. He told one scientist that he was bankrolling efforts to identify a mysterious particle that might trigger the feeling that someone is watching you. What? At one session at Harvard, Mr. Epstein criticized efforts to reduce starvation and provide health care to the poor because doing so increased the risk of overpopulation, said Mr. Pinker, who was there. Mr. Pinker said that he had rebutted the argument, citing research showing that high rates of infant mortality simply cause people to have more children. Mr. Epstein seemed annoyed, and a Harvard colleague later told Mr. Pinker that he had been voted off the island and was no longer welcome at Mr. Epstein's gatherings. Then there was Mr. Epstein's interest in eugenics. Epstein, I realize I'm calling him both back and forth. I apologize. I just don't give a fuck about this guy enough to pronounce his name right all the time. On multiple occasions, starting in the early 2000s, Mr. Epstein told scientists and businessmen about his ambitions to use his New Mexico ranch as a base where women would be inseminated with his sperm and would give birth to his babies, according to two award-winning scientists and an advisor to large companies and wealthy individuals, all of whom Mr. Epstein told about. It was not a secret. The advisor, for example, said he was told about the plans not only by Mr. Epstein at a gathering in his Manhattan townhouse, but also by at least one prominent member of the business community. One of the scientists said Mr. Epstein divulged his idea in 2001 at a dinner at the same townhouse. The other recalled Mr. Epstein discussing it with him at a 2006 conference that he hosted in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. The idea struck all three as far-fetched and disturbing. There is no indication that it would have been against the law. Once at a dinner at Mr. Epstein's mansion on Manhattan's Upper East Side, Mr. Lanier said he talked to a scientist who told him that Mr. Epstein's goal was to have 20 women at a time impregnated at his 33,000 square foot Zorro ranch in a tiny town outside Santa Fe. Mr. Lanier said the scientist identified herself as working at NASA, but he did not remember her name. According to Mr. Lanier, the NASA scientist said Mr. Epstein had based his idea for a baby ranch on accounts for the repository for germinal choice, which was to be stocked with the sperm of Nobel laureates who wanted to strengthen the human gene pool. Only one Nobel Prize winner has acknowledged contributing sperm to it. The repository discontinued operations in 1999. Mr. Lanier, maybe that's a business I need to get into. I'll sell some jizz. I got plenty. You want some? I'll hook you up. I got a hot shot for you. Yeah, come on. You want to have a bunch of little ginger-haired research masters that can play pretty much any instrument there is? Hey, come get you some. Mr. Lanier, the virtual reality creator and author, had said that the impression that Mr. Epstein was using the dinner parties where some guests were attractive women with impressive academic credentials to screen candidates to bear Mr. Epstein's children. Mr. Epstein did not hide his interest in tinkering with genes and is in perpetuating his own DNA. One adherent of transhumanism said that he and Mr. Epstein discussed the financier's interest in cryonics, an unproven science in which people's bodies are frozen to be brought back to life in the future. Mr. Epstein told this person that he wanted his head and penis to be frozen. Well, that dude had a lot of fucking confidence in his dick, didn't he? Or doesn't he? I mean, most people just want their head or their body. Nah. Not saying good enough for him. Simply, they can reattach the head in the future when they can create transhumanist robotic bodies. Nah, that's not good enough for Epstein. Nah. He wants his head on a robotic body, but he don't want a robotic dick. He wants that flesh dick to go with him into the future. Southern Trust Company, Mr. Epstein's Virgin Island Incorporated business, disclosed in a local filing that it was engaged in DNA analysis. Calls to Southern Trust, which sponsored a science and math fair for school children in the Virgin Islands in 2014, were not returned. Well, that's terrible. A science and math fair in the Virgin Islands, yeah. Well, you know where they were going. They were going to that island of sin. Alan M. Dershowitz, a professor emeritus of law at Harvard, recalled that at a lunch Mr. Epstein hosted in Cambridge, Massachusetts, he steered the conversation toward the question of how humans could be improved genetically. Mr. Dershowitz said he was appalled, given the Nazis' use of eugenics to justify their genocidal effort to purify the Aryan race, yet the lunches persisted. Yeah, not to mention that, you don't have to even mention the fact that here we are again with, we're just beat over the head with it, we're beat over the head with the Holocaust stuff, and we're beat over the head with the Hitler stuff, and here you have a Jew, and he's wanting to do exactly like what Hitler wanted to do, and nobody seems to point that out. Yet the lunches persisted. Everyone speculated about whether or not these scientists were more interested in his views or more interested in his money. Again, this is all bullshit. These guys are now trying to act like they're trying to backpedal and act like they're not all interested in this stuff. All these guys are all working on this stuff secretly. Goes on to say, John Brockman, a literary agent whose best-selling science writers include Richard Dawkins, Daniel Goleman, and Jared Diamond. For 2 decades, Mr. Brockman presided over a series of salons that matched his scientist authors with potential benefactors. These so-called billionaires' dinners apparently became a model for the gatherings at Mr. Epstein's East 71st Street townhouse, which included some of the same guests. In 2004, Mr. Brockman hosted a dinner at the Indian Summer Restaurant in Monterey, California, where Mr. Epstein was introduced to scientists including Seth Lloyd, the MIT physicist. Mr. Lloyd said that he found Mr. Epstein to be charming and to have interesting ideas, although they turned out to be quite vague. Also at the Indian Summer Dinner, according to an account on the website of Mr. Brockman's Edge Foundation, were the Google founders Sergey Brin and Larry Page and Jeff Bezos, who was accompanied by his mother. There you go. What more proof do you need? All these guys. They're trying to make it sound like, he was just some crazy guy into these wild scientific eugenics and transhumanist stuff, and all the rest of these big billionaire guys are not interested, or scientists are not interested in this at all. Right. So I think it's pretty clear now that we know what this whole thing is all about. It's to try to keep their agenda covered up and create this perception in the minds of the public that the ideas and stuff that Epstein was doing and all that, ends with him, when isn't the reality at all. The reality is that this is he's just one small minute byproduct of this much larger ongoing worldwide plan that sees humans that aren't within the circle, meaning the scientists that are on board with creating the technology, the billionaires funding. If you're outside of that, you're garbage to these people. You're less than garbage. I mean, they treat their garbage better than they treat anybody that's not in their circle. That's the whole, and then the whole sex trafficking and the child pedophilia stuff. Again, that's just a byproduct of all this. Anyone who values human life and humanity itself wouldn't do those things. When you're working towards eliminating humanity from the picture, and that whole stuff with him wanting to seed, again, that's just all those guys at the highest levels are trying to do that stuff. They're trying to pin all this stuff on Epstein so that when they finally flush this guy, the perception to the public is going to be that the ideas of transhumanism and eugenics and viewing humans as lesser than, because they're working towards eliminating us anyway. So why not fuck underage girls and molest kids and run sex trafficking rings and throw fucking victims into vats of acid and kill them and all? Why not do that? Because we're weeding everybody the fuck out anyway. They want the public to believe that all those ideas that we just talked about in that New York Times article are going to be flushed down the toilet when they finally flush him like the turd he is. And that's the biggest, to me, the most important takeaway that I hope a message we can get out to reach people. That's why we need to reach more people with my work and what we're doing here, is that this stuff doesn't end with him. And people on a large scale need to know that, but the mainstream media is not going to tell us that. They're just going to continue to recycle this stuff and act like, okay, the bad guy has been handled. We flushed his ass. There's nothing to worry about now. And that, again, that's a total and utter lie. And, again, this is why people don't want to talk about who it's really connected to. And the stuff I found in this most recent video, explains why you've got somebody like Joe Rogan who's not talking about this stuff. And it also gives them the ability to continue to relegate the real truth of this stuff to the conspiracy bin, which is what they try to do. But this stuff ain't a conspiracy, man. This is it is a conspiracy, but it's not a conspiracy theory. Let's be clear about that. You've got conspiracies, you've got conspiracy theories, and they're two different things. The other interesting piece that came out today, you saw that picture that I talked about with the Naomi Campbell Eye of Horus house with the dome in the middle of it for the eye. And no sooner than I'd finished that video and got it up today, this comes out. Kanye West domes pop up on Calabasas property, prototypes for housing community. Here's Kanye West building his Ascension cult compound, I guess, and it's full of a bunch of these domes that look exactly like that fucking dome on the Eye of Horus property of Naomi Campbell's. It's unbelievable. Now, I forgot to even put that in that Nardwar video. I mentioned that in the last show. The picture of Courtney Love and fucking Katy Perry at the Kanye thing. It was just an MK Ultra buffet there. Kanye West is bringing an incredible architectural concept to the hills of Calabasas, doing studies and developments to change the industry, and the prototypes are now springing up with an eye toward making them new age homes. Sources familiar with the project tell TMZ Kanye is building dome-like structures that are prototypes for a new type of home. Homes he believes will break the barriers that separate classes, namely the rich, the middle class, and the poor. Right. Give me a fucking break. Y'all really think that Kanye's going to have poor, broke-ass motherfuckers from the hood living out there in Calabasas? No. Bullshit. He's building this for the elite motherfuckers with money. They're going to be in his ascension cult and his fellow MK Ultra peeps. That's who they're building this for. Kanye's not building a bunch of fucking a bunch of domes on high-value real estate in Calabasas to bring a bunch of poor-ass brothers from the hood in. Give me a break. Give me a fucking break. We've got the first images of Kanye's plans to revolutionize housing. This project sits on a portion of land Kanye bought a few years back, 300 acres in all. His plan is to create a housing community, but until now, the butcher paper covered the canvas. It was a well-guarded secret. Construction crews have been hard at work at the Calabasas site for weeks, with trucks, cranes, and dozens of workers coming in and out. The dome-like structures each stand about 50 feet high. Our Kanye sources say the project is in an early state, but the vibe is there to make new housing communities the world can enjoy. We're told Yi and his team are studying dwellings from every period of man's existence on Earth. Those who have visited the property say the proportions feel otherworldly. Yeah, I'm telling you. Telling you what, you gotta watch that fucking Mystery Hollywood series of mine, man. 5 parts, it's $10 each. You can get that pack in the download shop and get all of them for $40. 9 hours on it. You gotta get it. You gotta see the Kanye shit I found in there, the Ascension Cult stuff I found. It ties into all this. This is hilarious, though. If they're thinking he's building this to make, give me a break. He's not going to fucking ship in a bunch of fucking poor black folks from the south side of Chicago and put them up in his fucking geodesic domes. This is his Ascension Cult property he's building, and that's all it is. 100%. Let's see what else we got. Oh, have you guys heard about this? This is interesting. This is real interesting. There's been the earthquake swarm recently in California, and it's been leading a lot of people to think that the big one might be on its way. Well, the past couple of weeks or so, there's been mysterious large aircraft flying over LA and flying over specific parts of the San Andreas Fault. Now they found out that this is in fact NASA planes that have been doing this. This is this is real interesting. A NASA aircraft that was spotted over California could have been scanning the notorious San Andreas Fault. The plane, NASA 817, baffled Californians last Monday when it was seen traveling from Palmdale to Boise in Idaho. CBS 2 anchorwoman Jasmine Veal said the low-flying plane was scary and big and loud. NASA has not confirmed why one of their craft was in the area, but online viewers have now spotted that its flight path appeared to show it zigzagging over the infamous San Andreas Fault. Yeah, it's very highly suspect. It does make you wonder, as I've talked about for years. It does make you wonder if they're not possibly trying to cause one of these earthquakes to happen and to speed it up. I've talked about the disaster economy many times in the past. you got to remember, these disasters like this, hurricanes, earthquakes, it's big money. Big money. And especially for the corporations, they get no bid contracts. It's big. It's billions and trillion dollars that are potential there to be gained off the back of these massive disasters. So to think that we've got earthquake technology ain't shit. It's not shit. They very well could be sending low frequency oscillations out of one of those planes along the San Andreas Fault, and you could cause that. You've seen those videos. You could go out with there's videos where, you can go out with a subwoofer and connect it with shit and put it into the ground and crank up low frequency. You can create an earthquake yourself, and it'll register. So you got to think about what they can do with things like ionospheric heaters like HARP and all the rest of this stuff, because that's originally what they developed, stuff like HARP 4, which, to look for oil wells, stuff like that, ground penetrating stuff. Very highly suspicious. To be honest with you, I would be more inclined, just, knowing what I know about NASA, I would be more inclined to think that they're out there trying to fucking cause an earthquake to happen than I would be inclined to think that they're out there flying the plane over just to see if an earthquake might happen. Seriously, think about that for a second. What do you think is more likely? Definitely more likely that they're trying to figure out a way to cause one of these things either to be worse or to expedite it, make it happen sooner, or than to be out there. What are you going to do anyway? What are you going to do in a plane flying over it? You're not going to be able to tell flying a plane over it any more than you'd be able to tell from the sensors and underground data and stuff that they have flying a plane over it, unless, they're using some sort of secret technology, which very well could be the case. All right, folks. We got 24 hours to raise a minimum of $1,200. We need 12 people to contribute $100. Please hit up the campaign page or use the donate button at BigOverReality.com. Everybody just put in something and we'll be good to go. Because again, even if we reach that minimum amount, we're going to be at zero, and we need some stuff to operate on, because I'm continuing to find more stuff, and I know I'm going to keep finding up stuff on old Vladislav Doronin, and I'm probably going to have to make another video at some point. Plus, I got Spellcasters 2 and 3 coming. This is the most crucial time. It's been a terrible month, but let's end it on a good note by getting everything we need in here to cover the operating costs so we can keep from going under tomorrow. All right, guys? I love you very much. I'll be back tomorrow with more updates and more shows for you. Let's do this. We'll see you guys. Take care.